we're actually streaming live. We have some really breaking news. Isaiah just broke it to me about maybe 15 minutes ago that Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, has just stepped down. Once again, Mike Tomlin for the Pittsburgh Steelers has just stepped down. We don't know what was going through his head because they lost the game last night. I watched that game. Pittsburgh struggled mightily, especially on offense. They couldn't get the ball moving. They couldn't do much of anything against Houston's defense. But Houston's got one of the best defenses in football, by the way, thanks to D'Amico Ryans, who's the head coach of Houston. So we're gonna cover as much as we can. We know Mike Tomlin spent 19 years and some change with the Steelers. There was every bit of reassurance that he was going to be back next year. However, things change, and things change overnight. It could have went through his head that, look, I don't want to put up with another year. Here's a guy that once said he's got the best job on the planet, and he wasn't looking forward to leaving that job. Isaiah, what do you think was going through his mind to make Mike Tomlin want to do this at just the spur of the moment?
Well, he's had a remarkable career. Everybody knows that. He's never had a losing season. And for the last at least 5 years, there's been severe pressure from everybody that's not surrounded in the organization. The fans, some of the players thought he had, overstayed his welcome. And so many other aspects of the game. He's never was able to get a stable quarterback in there. And it was just seemed like it was a downhill battle, and he couldn't get a secured quarterback. But what I see is this is the age and the years of the coaches. Coaches are leaving like right and left now, and he's some of the biggest ones that's left. Now he's included in the mystery of why these coaches are leaving. Harbaugh just got fired last week, and he stepped down. Maybe it was pressure because Harbaugh left, and they was only like a year apart. They was one of the two that stayed in there as the longest. So that could have been part of his decision making. Harbaugh was in there for like 19 to 20 years. So was Mike Tomlin. So it was probably a decision that he said, if I can't go no further than the second round of the playoff, maybe I need to step down and try to get some new fresh air and take some time off, or either go to another team. It's just so many variables into this thing right now. So we really don't know what went down with his decision makings. And they probably had a mutual agreement for him to just walk away if he don't go any further. He got an old quarterback, and I enjoyed watching Rodgers this year. Rodgers played a superb game the last week, but this week he had some uphill battles, and it was like an obstacle course last night. He was throwing. It's the first time I've seen him throw a pick in the last part of the game, and that was the ending of his the game for him. He didn't play the rest of the game, so his last pass was a pick. So it's a lot of things that goes on with this decision making on his behalf. So we don't know. I just want to see how many teams going to be acquiring him, because Harbaugh has got like 5 or 6 major teams are throwing everything they can to get him there. So maybe Tomlin might be the same way. We never know. Yeah.
That's true. And, my thing is with Mike Tomlin is it's an end of an era. It's an end of almost 2 decades, technically almost 2 decades of his coaching in Pittsburgh for one franchise. That's nearly unheard of. I mean, because if you look at the last coaches to really stay that long or stay close to being that long was Don Shula.
Yeah.
You had Don Shula was one of the few, along with several other coaches, because you had other coaches that, that didn't want to leave. Marv Levy at Buffalo, he stayed for a long time.
Chuck Noll, too.
Chuck Noll
stayed from Pittsburgh, right.
The unique thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is they hire a coach and they don't fire a coach. So with this coaching search, I pretty much, under the impression that they're going to look very carefully on who they want to bring in there. It could be somebody that they promote from within, but I highly doubt it. My main candidate that I'm thinking about right now, and this might be too premature to even start talking about the coaches and the searches, because there could be John Harbaugh, but I don't see John Harbaugh crossing the line, because Baltimore was just such a big, they were just, I mean, they were basically
the huge rival. That was a trade-off.
That was a rival.
Yeah.
For 19 years, between Harbaugh having 18 years and Tomlin having 19. I don't see Harbaugh being in that conversation.
I cannot believe that either, DC. You talking about a swap out.
I don't see him being in that conversation. Now, one candidate I do see possibly being in that conversation is Brian Flores. Brian Flores, after he left the Miami Dolphins under that cloud of smoke, and, you know, he was talking about suing the league and, you know, for all different types of reasons, where he felt like he was slighted in a way from the Miami organization itself. I could see Brian Flores as a leading candidate. I'm not saying they will hire Brian Flores, because the Rooney family have to make the final call on that. They have to make the final decision. But when Mike Tomlin left Minnesota, because Mike Tomlin was a defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. And if I'm not mistaken, and I'm really not mistaken, I think he coached under Denny Green, and I'll have to spot check that because I'm not 100% sure. But he had his opportunity to become a defensive coordinator, because what happened with him, he was a position coach. You know, he worked his way up, because, you know, Mike Tomlin went to William and Mary, and he graduated from William and Mary, played wide receiver on the football team. There is no other coach that I could say that will leave a great legacy like Mike Tomlin did, a positive legacy. His influence on the league itself, his influence and his just coaching ability and his style on the players that he's coaching. And he's coached a bunch of players coming through Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I'm talking about hundreds of players, if not up to 1,000 plus players. He's coached at Pittsburgh, and I've never had a player that I've heard say that Mike Tomlin was not easy to work for, or they gave him anything that was bad. I mean, I'm pretty sure they might have said it in their own private circles or whatever, but publicly, everybody that spoke of Mike Tomlin spoke very fondly of him, and they spoke very, very highly of him. And you know what? He'll be missed. I think he'll be missed in the league, because it's going to be kind of odd to me not to see him on that Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, DC. I mean, just to look at prior pictures, even yesterday, I was just looking at it when he first started, when him and Harbaugh was standing out there together, and they were saying there was a many years. This was before the game started, and they were talking about each other's children and how young they would look, and the kids was in elementary school, and now they all adults, and to see how young their faces were, you know, they neither one of them had gray hairs. It was just this youthful look amongst both of those coaches. And now to see Harbaugh is not going to be over there, and now Tomlin not going to be over there. It's going to be a weird scene to see these new faces on both of these franchises, which is both of them are outstanding organizations. So not to see either one of those guys is going to change the whole league, the outlook on the league, man. And see these young, but this is what's happening though. Is a thing where we're going into a new era and seeing new faces all over the place. Even in college football, it's just this transition where all of these new faces, these upcoming coaches, are getting opportunity to take over. So just to see these guys walk away, I mean, and fairly still young, especially Tomlin, he's still fairly young still. So he might go out and get another job. Harbaugh is going to probably get another job too. Neither one of them need it, because they stacked. They had big time paychecks when they were both coaching. So that financial thing is not an issue. It's just a matter of whether they want to continue coaching. But it's going to surely look different to see neither one of those guys on these sidelines of Pittsburgh and the Ravens. Yeah.
And you know what, Isaiah? It's the end of an era in the NFL. You just spoke on that, and that was so true. That the NFL is going to look altogether different in the next few years, because these are not, Mike Tomlin is not the only coach that's going to be gone. I mean, they've had other coaches' names come into conversation, Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. Although there is no reports that Matt LaFleur is on the bubble to get fired. But I'm just saying there were rumors swirling all over the league for different coaches. And you're going to have a younger generation of coaches at some point.
Mm-hmm.
The older era of coaches like Harbaugh,
they're getting flushed out of there.
Tomlin, they get flushed out little by little.
Yeah.
And I think you will see a more dynamic football league probably in the next 10 years, and from the sense of the entertainment portion of it. Because we're in an offensive-heavy league anyway, in terms of the entertainment piece of it. We're in a league that the NFL prioritizes offense over defense.
Mm-hmm.
And that hadn't always been that way, because back in the 80s, they were kind of even in a way where defenses were given the same type of privileges and the same type of calls that the offense were getting. But now that's not happening anymore. You're seeing more defenders getting called on things, and when a defender gets a crackback block on them, there's probably a 30 to 40% chance that a referee or official is going to catch that and call that a flag when somebody gets cracked back on. So,
yeah.
But if you start looking at a defenseless receiver, then you got a whole nother story. You hit a guy that was defenseless, he couldn't cover up or protect himself. But getting back to the Steelers organization, I just want to tell the Rooney specifically right now, you have done a good job. Art Rooney the third, I believe he's the third. The original Art Rooney, the original owner from the 70s, he owned the hockey team, the Pittsburgh Penguins. He owned the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that Rooney family, man, they're a class act family. They're classy. They believe in everything that's football because of the city of Pittsburgh. That's what they breathe, they live, and they die for. And the city of Pittsburgh is football. I mean, they don't really technically have basketball because Philadelphia is on the other side of the state.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the University of Pittsburgh, they've been irrelevant for 20 plus years. They haven't been the same since Dan Marino and all of them left up out of there, and Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino, and guys like that. So technically, the only thing they have in Pittsburgh is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's why their fan base is so loyal. I mean, they have one of the loyalest fan bases in the country. And I've seen a lot of different fan bases from different teams. But Pittsburgh fan base has always been there. They've never changed. They're spread out all over the country. They're spread out all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittsburgh is a class act organization. That's all I can say. Now, I'm kind of hurt that Tomlin, decided to make this decision. I'm sure he consulted with his family about it, and they all sat down and talked about it because, it takes a toll on you every year when you have to hear certain things that's said about you that, the media has said in Pittsburgh, because it's been media driven, the majority of it, the Pittsburgh Gazette and all of those other newspapers and local blogs and all of that. They wanted him gone. Now he's gone. So we'll see who the Rooneys decide to bring in there as their next coach. Because Arthur Smith, who used to coach the Atlanta Falcons, he was offensive coordinator for the Steelers this year. Because, they got rid of Matt Canada. Because Matt Canada, his offense was too predictable.
Yeah.
To me,
and he was there for quite a while.
Far off.
Yeah.
I mean, Arthur Smith didn't come in there with anything innovative. In other words, I could see.
Yeah.
To make their offense explosive. And that's one thing about George Pickens, that he decided to get out of there because he didn't feel like he was getting enough balls. And a lot of those receivers that came through there felt like they weren't getting enough balls. Now, the main thing we're going to see here is if Aaron Rodgers is going to come back. Because if Aaron Rodgers come back, that'll be, I think, the stability that they need at the quarterback position. But they definitely, I would expect them to go into the draft heavily and get a quarterback.
Yeah.
I would think they would trade up to get a solid quarterback, because bringing in free agent quarterbacks is effective. However, if you could get a young rookie quarterback, develop this quarterback under Aaron Rodgers, you said it all along, Aaron Rodgers is the perfect teacher for any young quarterback that's coming into the league. So, with all of that said, we wish Mike Tomlin well. I wish him well. I know you wish him well. Everybody at the DC Stewart Show Podcast, featuring Isaiah and Najee. We wish Mike Tomlin well. And, my hope is that we'll see his face on another sideline at some point. I want to see him not give up because he's still young. I think he's still young enough to do it. I think Harbaugh's still young enough to do it. And for them to be able to, them two guys to be able to win as many games as they did, both of them won one Super Bowl each.
Yeah.
Because I remember Tomlin won one and then Harbaugh won one.
Mm-hmm.
So their resumes speak for themselves. I mean, their resumes speak for themselves. Do you think either one of them guys are going to coach again before we close this thing out?
Yeah, I think both of them will probably coach again. I know sure well Harbaugh is going to coach again because he's made it known. Tomlin is another situation. I don't know whether he want to put himself through this scrutiny. He might just walk away from it. He's got a ton of money. He's been paid healthy for years and years, and just to be able to spend time for real with your family. Some of these guys will say that because they was getting ready to get fired, and they'll say that. So his situation could be truthful. I just admire him, man, and even the fact that his family was able to endure all of this rigorous practices and the games and the in and out of coaching, man. You got to be a dedicated, tight-knit family to go through a lot of that stuff because they don't spend that much time home. But I want to thank the Rooney family for giving Tomlin an opportunity like this because he really did a great job, man. He held up his side of the bargain, man, and to see a guy who lasts that long, and you can see the rocky road of coaches, man. I mean, look at what we're going through down here in Miami. I mean, since Stephen Ross owned this team, I mean, he's hired like 5 different head coaches. And that shows you the instability of the Miami Dolphins because they didn't have a guy who was just going to stick and stay and have that staying power like Tomlin had in Pittsburgh. And so it just shows the classiness of him and the organization, DC, the watch the rigorous years that he endured, not to have a good quarterback and then have severe injury too, because even before Big Ben left, Big Ben was full of injuries.
Right.
He was hurt for the last 3 or 4 years of his career with his Achilles, his ankles. He always was ailing. And Tomlin endured all that. He still had winning seasons with a wounded quarterback. So that goes to show you how good of a coach he was, man, because usually your quarterback go down, there goes your season in the most part. And I'm just eager to see, man, where he's going to land because there's so many openings out here now for coaches. There's so many cities that's really trying to get a good polished coach in there. And here it is, Miami Dolphins here. I hope we pick somebody that like a veteran coach. I don't want any brand new guy who's just want to feel his way around because we did that twice already. We got 2 coaches who just started out being head coaches. Not saying they wasn't good coaches, but they wasn't, polished head coaches. They hadn't been a head coach for a while. So I think both of those guys got their feet wet now, so they'll do somebody else some good. But when you starting out and you need to win right away, you need to bring in a veteran coach like Tomlin or either Harbaugh. Yeah.
Those guys got to be they have to be very, very careful about which teams they pick to go to, though, because they have to measure up the ownership first. I mean, the ownership comes in as the top priority for any coach because the ownership has to be stable and they have to be a logical ownership to say that, look, it's not going to be instant. A new coach coming in here, whether it's a veteran coach or a rookie coach coming in, it doesn't matter. They need to be careful, and I think Stephen Ross, like I told you before, Stephen Ross, Arthur Blank, the Rooney family, and and several other teams, the ownership is solid. So they have to carefully consider those things to make sure that they're going to put themselves in a good position to be a winner.
Yeah. I just digested the thing that you're saying about they've got to be careful about where they land, man, because I can imagine how awkward that'll look on both of these coaches, man. Just think about that, DC. You had a marriage of 19 and in 18 years of coaching in the same organization where you just really, really good friends with these folks, is a family. And then all of a sudden, this thing change, and then you have to deal with somebody else and their issues, and there's going to be so much of that unforeseen stuff that's going to happen that you have absolutely no clue that's going on, because maybe you brand new, but their baggage will still fall in your lap because now you're the head coach. So all of that prior baggage that they had and the reason why their organization was in turmoil, now you have to endure some of that stuff. So it's going to be remarkable to watch these guys and see how they navigate their way through these new teams. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, the bottom line is we hope the best. We wish the best for all of the teams, for all 32 teams, but these 6 teams, or actually now it's 7 because the Pittsburgh opening is open. No telling how many more will open up.
Yeah.
But these owners has got a lot of work to do in terms of getting these coaches in before the draft, because the draft is coming in April.
Yeah.
So they don't have a lot of time. You'll blink and April will be here. So I don't foresee any of these teams to not have a coach by that time. And I think all of these positions will be filled at some point. And we're going to hold out if Pittsburgh is going to select the right coach.
DC, I was just thinking about something just now. And one thing about Tomlin, and this just goes to his credit again, Tomlin wasn't a guy who was picking these players, man. It's one thing to see a coach and a GM that can go in and really pick who he wants to play for him. Tomlin didn't have that luxury, man. He was a guy who coached who they brought in. So I think that was one of the reasons why they was able to put up with some of the seasons that were not losing seasons, but it wasn't up to standard, because they were the one picking these players and bringing them in for him. And then you had a lot of attitudes throughout, his years there too, in the likes of Antonio Brown and some of these guys who was just disruptive, and they wasn't really guys who you can depend on. They were guys who wasn't like bought into the system because they would do stuff outlandish where it didn't look right for the organization, and then he had to bear the brunt of that stuff too. It's just to see him come in, and that's why I think Harbaugh want a lot of power wherever he goes. He want to be able to be the guy who select the players and coach them and all that stuff, because it has a lot to do with your product. If you're the one picking these people, it's all on you. And some of these guys want to do it, and some of them get pissed off because you say, "Well, he ain't my guy." And that's the thing that happened with Flores here in Miami. You picked Tua, he was like, "This ain't my guy. This ain't who I wanted."
Not the player I wanted.
And then it caused friction and conflict between the upper front management and then the coach, because you picked somebody who I told you that was soft, and I told you that, and you picked him anyway. Now you push him on me to coach him, and I told you he wasn't any good. So that right there plays into the fact that Harbaugh want to go ahead and have a lot of power who comes to that team. Whoever team that pick him, he want to be the one select the players where he can coach them. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense what you just said, and I'm going to just probably say Mike Tomlin is going to be very similar to that. I would think Mike Tomlin will want a certain amount of leverage in terms of being able to have a say in who's getting drafted, who comes in here, who goes out of here.
Yep.
I think his next move, and he'll have that. He's got the background and he's got the resume to get what he wants. I mean, it's not like the next team won't just deny him. I mean, they're going to have to consider that, look, you got to give this guy some power to be able to make calls because I'm coaching him.
Yeah.
Tuna said it best. Look, if I'm coaching him, I want to shop for the groceries.
Yeah.
I want to be able to shop for the groceries. I don't want to just be able to just eat the groceries when they get home. I want to shop. So that's
good, man. That was one thing I liked about Jimmy Johnson and Jerry when they were there. They sat down together, and at that time, Jerry wasn't dysfunctional like he is now because he
out a bunch of stuff before it started to fall.
yeah, it was like they trusted each other back then. You know,
Right.
he let Jimmy select who he wanted, and the only thing he did is cut the check because they trusted everybody. But see, most of these knuckleheads now, and Jerry has become one. He want to select who he select, and then he don't get somebody who's like actually good because he's dialed up on some of the 1970s type of thinking,
Yeah.
so he don't get the right players in there. And then when they don't pan out, he's fired a damn coach. So it's just a catch-22 when it comes like that. If I was the owner, I would say, okay, listen, you the head man, pick who you want, and I'll cut the check. And don't bring me nobody who's gonna break the bank.
That'd be the highest priority of any owner of any team.
Yeah.
Especially if you bring in someone in with a track record that you know that they get results.
Yeah.
Every time they get results, that you give those type of people the leverage and whatever they say they need. And then if it does work out, then you just part company. Owners are making on average $400 million to $500 million. Some of them need more than that, especially Jerry. That's just for profit after they pay their bill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the owners are not hurting financially. So if you are on the hook to have to pay a coach that, just pay him. I mean, cut him a check, and if it doesn't work out, go your separate ways. It's just it's a hit or a miss. It's a risk.
Of course
Anytime
it is.
you sign anybody to do a job somewhere, it's a hit or a miss. That's on any regular job.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that risk. So I could say this. I second what you said about the Rooney family. Man, I thank the Rooney family so much for giving Mike Tomlin that opportunity for as long as they gave it. Because the Rooney family, they brushed off that nonsense.
For years they did it, DC.
Years.
And not only that, they
sure that they were getting calls from the media.
Of course they were. Yeah, man.
What does he have on you? Does he have something on you?
Yeah, what DC understand the dynamic of all of this, man. They the one came up with the rule. They came up with legislation in the NFL to at least give them an interview. At least that's the least you could do is interview these coaches, man. I mean, if you don't even interview them, how in the hell can you expect to get a good candidate in there if you just don't even interview the people, man? You bring somebody, you just pass over guys who will probably bring you in a championship, but you never gave them an opportunity, and that opportunity means at least sit down and pick my brain in an interview. So it's amazing. It's amazing.
It is, and you know what? Last but not least, before we close this thing out, I think it was great for both parties.
It was.
I think what happened with Tomlin made the right decision. A lot of people say different. But I think Mike Tomlin made, because me and you have talked about this for years. Look, I said years ago, Mike Tomlin should just walk away from all of it and reset himself. Reinvent himself, come back, and then he'll have a fresh start somewhere else. But faith is something else, man. I'm just injecting faith into our life and our show because faith makes things happen that you don't even know may happen in a year or two, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe the next second or two. Like for example, I'm driving along. I'm doing runs today. I'm running around town, and you call me and say that happened, and we got to get this out to our viewers because we want our viewers to know what we think about this. And we'll be talking about this going into the weekend. Now, we'll have another show on the weekend. We're going to be talking about this Mike Tomlin thing specifically. So we appreciate everybody stopping by and vibing with us again. This is the DC Stewart Show Live featuring Isaiah and Najee. And we appreciate you. This is real talk. No ESPN script. And keep vibing with us. So we'll see you again soon. Take care of yourself. Peace, love, and prosperity. Take it easy.